Hey, it's
Hi.
so good to see you. So, we're doing this. We're doing this. So you got Mark. Well, first, Mark is on his way to his son's college graduation this weekend. So that means you get an Andrew and JB update stream. Nobody knows what's gonna happen.
It's gonna be crazy. Alright. Anyway.
Yeah.
Is it going to involve reading the top 10?
We're gonna read the top 10-ish. There's top 10 and a half-ish.
Yeah.
14.
14-ish.
14-ish.
Ish.
Yep.
Ish means 4.
Yep. Today.
In the special moon language that only Tyler speaks.
Yep.
That is what ish means. 1, 2, 3, ish, 5, 6, 7. First off, let's. I'm actually going to have to switch over to my phone for this because we have a late-breaking information on weekend test. So there is going to be some sort of weekend test that is going to be happening on Saturday. I am not sure we have like 1 or 2 last-minute, oh my god, this crashes the server bugs that we are trying to fix, and if we can get them fixed, then we'll be looking at rolling out something brand new on Nuada for alpha backers. If not, we'll be kind of a polish oriented test on Wormling, which will include some beta backers. So it's just gonna come down to check your email for when we send out the weekly update, and item number 1 will have the details on which way that goes. We just gotta fix one bug on the physics server. But if Nuada, so I'll come back to what's on Nuada if we haven't covered it in the top 10 by the end of this.
Do you want to explain the pizza?
Yeah, let's explain.
Okay.
So, CU has what is known as a creepy rich uncle, and richer and creepier than Mark, and he sent us pizza. So we had massive piles of pizza, and there's more pizza, and I don't know what to do with all this pizza. We ate a ton of pizza, and I'm going to continue eating pizza tonight. Depending on how things go, I may follow this up with a code stream or something. Cool. Stay tuned. You never know what's going to happen, especially when I'm allowed near a camera. Anyway, that's 1 and 1.5. Top 10-ish number 2. Colin is... Well, actually, you take 2. I'm going to grab 3.
Yeah, 3 is Andrew's. So, number 2, we have Work in Progress Tech, Multi-Server Scenario Director. This is where Colin's been working on a scenario director to allow players to queue into scenarios from different zones, and by different zones, like entirely different server machines. So you can just be standing in another server and get queued into a scenario that's running on a different server, and your character gets sent over there and added to the scenario. Right,
and we can have scenarios that sort of span multiple servers where, like I kill guys over here and you kill guys over there, and it aggregates into a total thing. And this is, I've talked before about the idea of scenarios is that this is what's, right now we're scripting them, but this is what's going to grow into the, sort of the campaigns / public quests / all of those kinds of things that, we can, that will be part of the live game. So, scenarios that span multiple servers is essentially campaigns. As we're doing these scenario tests where capture the points, etc. The place to look long term with scenarios is that we're going to have scenarios that are increasingly large in scope and persistence until the final biggest scenario is just the scenario that never ends, that is Camelot Unchained, the full persistent world. So that's our path forward on that, and that's why scenarios that can span multiple servers and multiple zones is important. So, number 3, buildings. I've been really, really quiet publicly lately, and that's because I've been doing a ton of work on sort of the core building code to pull it into the shape that it needs to be to perform the way we want. You know, I've talked a lot about you know, the iconic moment that that I want to have in this game is the Two Towers moment, where you've got hundreds of people up on top of the wall, 1,000 orcs out in front. You blow up the wall turns into chunks, and it's all real physics, and it matters where the chunks land and all of that. And so buildings just were not performing at the level that they need in terms of how fast we could send updates over the network. They weren't performing at the level we need in terms of how fast the client could display a change once a change occurred, whether that was in Cube or anything else. And there was some architectural cruft that had happened in there, and I just brought a big sword and have swept through the cobwebs, and it was on an architectural side, and so sort of things built on that architect on the old structures have all needed a little bit of rework. So we are in the home stretch. Matt did a lot of work to plumb the high-level UI and cube editing stuff into the low-level structures that I've set up. And I don't know, if you've played with Cube on Hatchery, it's not a great experience as you start to build bigger and bigger things. It's you can go out and you can if you start building stuff far away from the origin, for instance, then performance goes to hell. It's you place a block and you just sit there, la la la, and eventually a block appears, and that's not even with a server in the loop. And in the branch that we're working on right now, we've gotten it to the point where I can just drag out a big ass 50 by 50 by 100 wall and just be like, stamp, 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 stamp all over the place, and just build these god-sized, titan-sized structures that bestride the world of Cube like a colossus, and it goes at absolutely as fast as I can press the mouse.
Which is awesome.
And so going far, and that's in a really good place. It's really awesome. And so once we get that merged fully back into Hatchery, including the networking side, which hopefully should perform just as well, then we'll be in the place that we need to be in terms of lots of large-scale buildings in the world alongside lots of players. So thanks to Matt for doing the UI, and basically Matt did the UI, and then once the UI was there, it gave me better ways to test the underlying structure, and so I got to fix a bunch of bugs in the underlying structure, and now I've moved on to the networking side.
You want to hand me those pizza boxes and I'll put them on the table here?
No, dude, it's my pizza.
Okay.
Can't take the pizza away.
Can't take the pizza away.
All right, so number 4 is work in progress tech skill effect debugging. Rob made an awesome dev UI that does a lot of things that I didn't expect the dev UI to do. So we can debug skills a lot better now, and Ben's been having a lot of use for it with making skills better for the game, which is great. Anything we can do to help Ben make the game faster and with the design
pretty badass.
skills.
It's like you'd come in and swing a sword and hit someone, and you'd be like, well, did that really do the right damage? Why did it do the amount of damage it did? And you could maybe dig through a whole bunch of server logs, but having that appear right on your client.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, you want to take 5?
All right, so number 5 was post office.
I'll let you take 5 and 6.
Okay. Number 5 is post office, which Caleb has been working on, which that is a inter-server eventing system and communication system kind of on the back end which was really helping with just getting data around throughout our servers. And so that's just useful overall for helping with gameplay. Let's see, work in progress, patcher variables. So this is a thing that Dave has been working on for the patch client in order to allow the patcher to get some information from the patch client that isn't actually like your typical game resources like model data or textures or whatever. It can just get arbitrary information that we want for it, which has a ton of useful stuff for us on the back end for developers to make our lives easier and allow us to do more things. But also, for players, it can do some things like reset your configs if you've messed up the game client settings somehow. And so if your resolution's all weird and you can't reset it in game, we'll be able to give you an option to do that from the patcher.
So Christina has pretty much just been like total Swiss Army knife. She lives pretty close to the user level side of, hey, is this actually fun? What sucks about interacting with this? And she's just been chewing through a whole bunch of things. She's been doing planning an updated crafting UI, and building plots now actually display on the map so that players can find their personal plot and see which faction owns a plot. That's pretty cool. JB did a whole lot of stuff about map widgets, but that last mile, that makes it meaningful to players. Lots of new / commands so that we can admin resource nodes and do cool things with that. She's been working on new item actions related to the Vox, and basically so that if you lose your Vox, you can get one back. Oops. That was definitely a developer kind of thing of, well, we gave everyone a Vox, problem solved, right? No.
Yeah.
And lots of sound and visual effect triggers on the Vox.
Yeah, the item action triggers thing there. I want to point that out because that's a very cool thing that she got in this week, where you'll be able to she can define custom like context menu items on items in your inventory that can run arbitrary actions. So you can interact with items a lot more than just drop it on the ground, which is basically all we had so far, like drop or equip. So you'll be able to like deploy things or like toggle things.
And Matt's been working on like the deploy thing with an eye towards ultimately being able to like deploy things onto building walls and make them parts of buildings. But although that's farther out, that's not something that we can check off yet. So number 8, or as we call it, ish times 2.
Ish.
2-ish.
Yes, ish.
8 is 2-ish. This week we saw the return of the first pass of new working traits from Bin with a lot of support from Rob. That's one of the things that if we can fix the physics server bug on Nuada, that'll be something you'll get to play with on this weekend. And this will let people add a lot more variation to characters, and we want traits to matter. It's not going to be like purely a cosmetic thing.
And these ones actually do matter, unlike ones we've had previously.
Plus 1% to an arbitrary stat.
Yeah, these ones matter, which is good. So number 9, we have art with animations. So Sandra and Scott have been working on a lot of the animations. Sandra has been wrapping up the Forest Stalker work for a new idol that's specific to that class. Scott has been working on Black Knight jumps, and also a Fiona's new ability and a new spear pierce and slash attacks, which I haven't seen yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yeah. Me too. Sometimes like things on the art I don't necessarily like. Sometimes I read the update to find out what's going on the art side. It's all just polygons that come in from the perspective of the code. So one thing I have been paying attention to, because I look over Tyler's shoulder to yell at him about stuff. and he's frequently working on maps. This week, continued focus on the Dragonfang map, which is where we've been doing our, some of our point capture scenario stuff, and that's, it's kind of been the balance of get it to be not like these big empty sandy plains anymore. We've been adding a lot of assets, but also tuning and balancing them to get into a good frame rate. There's some, I especially, of course, I'm me. I love the Viking areas that are on this. He's got, just cool, jagged, like dragon fangish rocks, like rock pillars sticking up along the coast.
Giant dragon head even, too.
Yeah, well, the giant dragon head's been in there, but it looks more like a real environment and not just all right, here are some hills in the terrain. So it's got a real feel to it.
It does.
We're gonna continue to make it better.
Now.
Not that it didn't look good before. We love you, Tyler, in a very manly way. Doesn't Tyler have it's just so firm? Nice.
I'm not going to comment on that. All right, moving on to 11-ish.
Try being on this side of the camera.
Max is like, #me too.
Direct point that somewhere else.
Yeah. VFX, updated realm variations. So using Michelle's concept art, Mike has been making new sprites and templates for prototyping new animations for the Blackguard and Black Knight's abilities. So lots of cool effects coming in. I think we had some concepts that were, 2 weeks ago on the Friday update that Michelle did with those, and they looked pretty cool in concept. So,
let's see. Also, work in progress on one-handed hammers. The Mjolnir is getting an animation update, and it'll give him unique idols, and it'll be dual-wielding one-handed hammers.
Is he also shouting at the same time and walking? Is that how that works?
Hopefully not. And Michelle has concepted the hammers, and the models have been finished by John. So, and then Scott is gonna be hooking those into animations, and lots of hammer power.
Awesome. Number 13 is also with art on the UI side. James Koo has been finishing up the chat styles. So the new chat redesign as well as the chat settings redesign is complete, and he's working on the full screen tabs interface now for how we manage what windows you see in our the parts of the UI that are the full screen UI, which is all coming along great.
Yeah. And last but not least, number 10-ish. Because 4 is ish.
I get 10 plus ish. Yep.
John finished a first pass on several renders this week for character creation. We're just gonna continue to make the characters in character creation look better. It's gonna look cool. It's gonna keep looking better and better and better.
Yes. That's what we try
until you're like, crap, this character creation looks so good, I'm not even going to play the game. I'm just going to sit here creating my character forever. It's going to happen, dude.
I look forward to that.
I mean, isn't that like basically how Michelle played Black Desert Online?
I think that's how literally everyone in the world played Black Desert Online for 2 months before release, because they released the character creator ahead of time.
All right, so, So that is the top 10 from Camelot Unchained, with a creepy uncle, but absolutely no collusion with Russian oligarchs. And let's get on to these.
Or do we do a Q&A first?
Wait, we're not, but we have presents.
I don't know.
Presents last.
Usually we do the
presents at the end.
Save it for the end.
Yeah.
That's what we usually do.
Man, you're worse than my dad on Christmas morning.
Andrew really wants to open presents.
I don't care. Do what you want. But we have some time for some Q&A here, folks. So we have two programmers here, Andrew and JB. So if you have questions related to programming.
or UI or Mod Squad or
UI, Mod Squad. What else?
Groups design, social
Groups
systems.
design. Social what?
Social systems, groups.
All right.
or beer.
Buildings.
We are probably
Beer,
the two biggest
yeah.
beer guys at City State.
Or
beer
whiskey.
He's got the macro. I've got the micro.
Okay. Odilvik asks, given a finished structure might be stable. Well, that's really hard to say. Given a finished structure might be stable, yet a partially completed structure might collapse. When and how will cube stability be calculated when building from a blueprint?
So I don't have a definitive answer to that. But my guess on this is that we are going to maintain that as long as it is being incrementally built towards a final blueprint that is stable, we are going to hand wave that, your little building helpers that are putting blocks into place for you incrementally over time are also sort of creating magic scaffolding. So if you can build a blueprint that is ultimately going to be stable, we're not going to make you hand wave the process. Now, what would be really cool on the graphics side is if we could actually visualize some of that scaffolding being built, temporarily popping in for your benefit.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. That's not a guarantee, but given that you do not have control over the order in which blocks are going to be placed in from your blueprint, then I don't think it's reasonable for us to sit there to say, oh yeah, and if those blocks get placed in an order that's temporarily unstable, too bad, your building can never be built. Now, the tricky part on that is, well, what if suddenly your keep comes under siege and someone, the incremental blueprint stops, or something's been built out into half of an arch that's not supporting itself yet, and then someone comes along and we'll let that slide because it's not because it's building towards something that will be supported, but then things come under siege and someone goes up and they hit the bottom of that incomplete arch. Like, at what point do we say, okay, yeah, that is what it is and it falls down right now? So that is a that is a question to be answered. I'm not gonna lie. We are going to get in what we have and see what works well.
Okay, Sacrix asks, was too much emphasis put on Mod Squad and open source to build the UI for CSE, and how do you plan to manage it going forward on that end and with exploitative mods such as auto assist and nerfed buttons?
So, always with the loaded questions. So that's multiple parts there. The first part about Mod Squad and the emphasis on them, it was never the intention of Mod Squad to build the entire UI for the game. Mod Squad helps out, and those members of Mod Squad that have the time and the capability in order to do a lot do help a lot. There's specific Mod Squad members that have helped out greatly so far with a lot of the UI development. Me Huge.
Listen, Me Huge. If you ever feel like taking a massive pay cut from your actual job and coming to work for crowdfunded wages,
but in general, the open source nature of it isn't specifically just for Mod Squad. It's also so that it serves as an example for mod developers, people who want to mod our game and our UI down the road. They can look at what our whole UI is actually made out of, all the guts of our UI, and they can copy it, build their own based off of that. Still think that's a great direction to keep going forward, and Mod Squad is helpful, and love working with them.
Yeah, and there's also honestly, the amount that we have gotten from Mod Squad was more than I anticipated. Where I expected it to be was, we will primarily do our development, but if someone's like, hey, this just feels clunky for my use case because I'm in there actually playing the game all the time, and You know, like JB and I spend more hours a week playing Visual Studio than playing Camelot Unchained. There's no way around that. Someone who spends as many hours, and so I could tell you all the ways that like Visual Studio's UI could be better. Someone who spends as many hours a week playing CU as I spend playing Visual Studio can probably come up with some really good suggestions, and by having it open source, like, they have a way to actually push those suggestions back to us in a real form. And that's where I expected the principal value of the Mod Squad to be. You know, you guys have gone above and beyond.
Yeah.
So
and I guess to hit the last point, as far as Mod Squad and any kind of exploits or any issues with the interface, like, that's not possible from our Mod Squad team, in that everything Mod Squad does is personally code reviewed by myself or AJ. And if there are things that get through, that's like, we missed it, and it may be of something that we may have put in ourselves.
And also there's, I mean, that's like, that's such a loaded, you know, that's Sacrix trying to make a question into a trap. Because, you know, any game that has a moddable UI, whether or not they have open sourced their UI, whether or not they, you know, allow people to submit changes to the primary UI, like, that game has to harden the interface between the client and the moddable UI against those kinds of things. And we have to do the same thing. It's just, you know, you have a whole lot more examples of working UI mods in the form of the game's real official UI. So, I mean, that's neither here nor there for Mod Squad. It's just, yeah, that's what you do. That's what I had to do on Warhammer. That's what Blizzard has to do with WoW. That's life.
All right, Svarty and others, any kind of design questions you're going to want to save until we have Ben or Mark on here. These are two programmers, so we're focusing on questions surrounding stuff that they work on.
Or spaceships, beer or spaceships. Like, JB and I are both big on the spaceships.
All right. Carlitos Way Leet does ask, when are we going to see groups and orders or mechanics such as healing vision?
So, groups and orders is something that I will be working on soon. There's other things that come up, you know, and have higher priority right now, but that is something that I'm working on getting in sooner rather than later. Again, getting those back in. I started working on them again this week.
Yeah,
and I have some other things to do next week.
The back end is in a really great place. It's mainly about the UI.
Yeah, and is the other? What was the last half of that one?
Healer Vision.
Healer Vision. Yeah, that is something that is still in a kind of a concept, not even really concepted. It's a idea phase, and not something we're going to really touch until after Beta 1 starts.
It is not on the programmer task list for the next 60 days.
Yeah.
Somebody in the walls.
Yeah.
Vesir 1, Andrew, have you ever thought about shaving your head and doing a God of War cosplay?
Yes. I used to be way more buff than I am now. Yeah, being in charge of city-state engineering has left me with less time and energy to go to the gym. But, oh my god, I could have made an awesome Kratos 5 years ago. My wife said it would be creepy, though, so.
I'm not sure whether these next questions are design or programming, so you guys can tell me.
So I could maybe be old Kratos now that Kratos is old.
Dad Kratos.
Badass Dad Kratos. Lotoween asks, will currency be a physical object in game?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
More people
with
in the
weight.
walls.
Yes, and it has weight, so you can't carry it too much.
So, and also, like the auto coin changing of my, 100 copper magically becomes 1 silver, my 1 silver magically becomes 1 gold. Like, that will not actually happen.
Odelvik asks, given when you're in the trade window, your vision is blinded for both parties for the duration of the trade. Will getting hit auto-cancel the trade or flash the border, etc.?
That sounds like a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Carlos OG asks, beer and pizza, question mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Lodoween asks, will beer be able to be 3D printed from game?
Ooh, I wish.
Like, I mean, 3D printers, all they really
But
do is
from the
like
game,
lay down the, you know, the stuff that they already have. So you'd have to have a 3D printer full of beer.
With beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, why not just drink your 3D printer?
Well, does it print the cup, or is it just like, is it just an electronic beer keg that, you know, prints the beer into your mug?
Strike asks.
Poor Max.
Strike asks, how is the road to Beta 1 going? Everything's still on track? Hit any big issues yet?
So in terms of checking things off, we are definitely still in a pretty good cadence. What we are not getting kind of like between each sprint as much time to polish maybe as we'd like. So, you know, there's been a lot of just firefighting things coming in at the last minute. So we built in polish time, but we're not getting as much polish time as we would necessarily like. So features are checking. Features are getting checked for sure. That's in a good place. Though that's, you know, we're going to have to push harder. You know, there's going to be a lot of polish that we're probably just going to have to, you know, have an all-night polish session or something several times.
Several nights.
Veruca asks, any chance of getting in-game support for joystick WASD movement?
So, this is a thing that George mentioned to me when he was changing the input that I think we may already support, or are close to having support
Theoretically.
for. Theoretically. We haven't actually done it, but theoretically...
in terms of the game that we have committed to deliver to people. If our game is playable with that few buttons, like if our game, then that's not necessarily the game that our backers very specifically asked for, going back to the original Kickstarter. You know, people want more skills and more complexity of skills than you can fit on a joystick. And so, in theory, yes. In practice, you will probably lose if you do not have access to your full range of skills.
Yeah, we are going to be doing a keybind refactor, and I think the keybinds may support other controllers. It's just, you know, it's not going to play the game very well.
Yeah, it's, you know, be like playing, you know, your little 18-inch Casio keyboard and trying to do a symphony.
Dark Society Network asks, will Andrew personally supervise the in-game selection of silly hats?
I think that's all Michelle.
Now I want to go get you a silly hat. Okay, Saccharix asks,
can you believe?
Oh, go ahead.
Can you believe I went to Disney World and did not come back with a single pair of mouse ears?
I don't believe that.
I don't, because I saw a Facebook picture with you and mouse ears. Did you not bring those back with you?
I did not actually buy them. I was only in the store.
Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to my wife. She went down and ran the Disney half marathon this past weekend, and she's badass. I continue to work on my Kratos dad bod.
You know what, Saccharix? Word that in a more polite way, and we'll come back to it.
Ouch.
Gab A. Gopal. I'm not sure if this is a design question or a programming question, so maybe you guys know. Gab A. Gopal asks, how does the Vox interact with its surroundings? Will siege machines roll right through them? Can we make a wall of Vox to defend a keep?
So, technically, you could make a wall of Vox, but only like you don't have a unlimited supply of Voxen. They're not going to be like just everyone has a million Voxen type thing. So they do have like physics collision and they can take damage.
Yeah. So I would like to get us to a point where items can be smashed. You know, where items can be real physics objects. and subject to the same things that other physics objects are.
The man with no screen name asks, concerning beer drinking preferences, Mick Ultra, Corona Light, or straight battery acid?
Water, or acid?
I'd
go with Corona, actually, because
I'm gonna have to choose Corona too. I have a soft spot for Corona. I mean,
yeah.
There are times like if you like, it's pretty good tasting water. As water goes, that you got your vitamin water, you got your smart water, and you got your Corona, and I go with the Corona, especially with the lime.
Without the lime for me, though.
Sacrix asks, how much did your Eve playing influence the casual-friendly social structures?
What is this? Is like
So, like any game that I play, getting ideas and influence from things I play, is always a factor. And
I'm still just trying to get from, how did we get from Eve to casual friendly?
So the casual friendly in Sacrix's opinion is because battle groups right now don't have a small limit of warbands. You can have 100 warbands in it or 10 warbands in a battle group. Similar to how Eve's fleet system works a little bit. That's where that comes from. But yeah, the answer is get influence from a lot of different games, and Eve's definitely an influence. But yeah, not going to go into the casual argument right now.
To say Eve is not a casual game.
It's not.
Darlgon asks, have you been maintaining the Mod Squad members, or are they like some of the other teams that have laid dormant for years?
So Mod Squad, I don't kick them out if they're not doing anything for a few months, because people have life commitments and stuff. But we keep in touch with them. I do, we'll remove Mod Squad and any access that they get for being in Mod Squad, after enough time of inactivity. But as long as people are contributing, we're not you need to be submitting code to us every month, or you can't be Mod Squad. So it's volunteer, and they help out a lot.
Count Kennything on the YouTube chat asks, with the physics system, will there be, or is there already, a wind factor at certain heights, such as something with the potential to sway tall and possibly poorly constructed buildings? That's
unlikely. Buildings sort of exist literally in a vacuum. That gets into harder physics than we really can. I'm not going to say it's hard in the sense of the math is hard, but it's hard in terms of the amount of calculation that needs to be networked across to thousands of players, and the CPU time for it. So I think we've picked our right set of compromises on realism. That said, I'm not going to rule out a wind spell that just might we might do something with wind spells, but it won't be just all the time weather type stuff. Das LP Shop asks, will it be possible to play online audio files via the web UI on selected events happening in-game, like replacing a hit sound with a custom Wilhelm scream?
Okay, so on this, the in-game sounds don't actually go through our UI. That is an interesting idea that we could potentially think about making a hook to do that kind of stuff. But those actually go through Wise, a third-party audio engine.
It happens deep in the game.
Yeah, it's deep in the game client. We'd have to have a hook to replace those types of things. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it is a cool idea. But I think that's going to be at the back of the priority list.
Yeah.
Side note, James Koo says someone has to make the space theme UI skin.
Yes, like an artist.
CUL cars.
Maybe he means someone has to do it. Anyway, Lodeween asks, when were you going to give us your critique of the new Star Trek series?
Of Discovery? I thought it was great. I liked it a lot.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I live in... I don't have whichever streaming service it's on.
Yeah, it was on CBS, like a new streaming service just for CBS. Yeah, so.
All right, I don't understand this question. Maybe you guys do. Where to Greece asks on the YouTube chat, can you speak about the interaction between the light entities and the skills of the TDD Scout?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to kick that one to Mark and Ben.
Okay, it's a design question. We got two programmers here. Here's another spaceship question. Thalatos asks, design-wise, which spaceship do you guys think is superior? The Imperial Star Destroyer or a Battlestar?
Yeah. Going with the one that exists. Yeah. Look at that.
Nice. Let's see if that messed up the camera. No, it's fine. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, SpaceX is my sports team.
Nice. Okay. Gibberlot asks, which of the CSE team is the mad drinker on work nights out?
Mad drinker.
On work nights out.
Yeah. There's totally not footage of me singing karaoke very drunk at all.
Or me.
Or Andrew.
I'm gonna say pound for pound, it's probably Dave. Like, you gotta scale it.
Yeah,
you
you scale it.
Like, if if you pound 3 beers, that's not a lot of beer. If Dave pounds 3 beers, that's a lot of beer.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave's definitely the biggest drinker by pound.
Could you guys go over the? Some people didn't understand about the test plans for the weekend.
Okay. So it is a little bit up in the air. There's one physics server crash that we really need to nail down. If we can nail that down, then the test will be on Nuada. It'll be alphas only. Some of the things that we expect to have on that are new health meters and a bunch of other skill UI changes. Bunch of map fixes around the Tuatha spawn point. Bunch of Arthurian abilities that weren't available now are. Whole bunch of skill timing and balance changes. Also a big balance pass on archers because they were OP. And much better clarity on the flyout text, indicating which body part got hit and stuff like that. So, overall, it's just a whole bunch of aggregated game features that are on Nuada. Unfortunately, there's also this big physics server crash. So, if we can get that taken care of, and it's just you're gonna have to look in the email. Then there will be an alpha only test of this new build on Nuada. Otherwise, we have some polish and bug fixes and just general purpose quality improvements, but nothing major feature-wise on Wormling, and we will open that up to betas this weekend. So it will be one or the other. Wormling being a slightly older build, but without the physics server crash. So that's kind of the break. That's the deciding point. We will figure it out in the next hour or so after the stream, and just check the weekly email for which that is. There's definitely going to be a test, but it depends on whether or not the physics server on Nuada gets its crash fix in time.
Saya OUO asks, how is CU going to utilize procedural generation in the future? Is it going to be similar to how Minecraft generates terrain with their biomes? Is most of the world handcrafted, or a combination of both? And how is that tech coming along?
So, procedural generation, we do biomes. Like Ben can just go in there and be like, here's a map and there's some forest over here. Then I think where we have a real edge and that's actually pretty well understood. Where we have an edge in our system is the ability to, for instance, Tyler can go in and be like, oh, this particular rock would look better that came out of the procedural generation would look better over here. I'm going to move some stuff around, blah, blah, blah. And then, you can, and those changes will persist across other changes to proceduralness. So it's not like you roll the dice and get a big map and then you make changes, but it's like the fact that the procedural and the editing are both interacting with each other persistently. So yeah, we do a ton of stuff with that. In terms of where we would like to go even farther on that, there's lots of just general purpose terrain things like handling steep slopes and overhangs better, and rivers and roads and various things like that. More ways for objects to influence the terrain. For instance, put down a tree and the terrain under the tree gets less grass on it because it's in the shade and stuff like that. That's a big wish list for me. And also integrating that into buildings where, all right, I start building on a building plot and I can smooth out the terrain and things like that. All the ways that entities in the world can feed into the terrain. And having a procedural system gives us the chance to just regenerate parts of the terrain as things change it. Longer term, I'd like to see us do procedural things that are more at a higher level of gameplay. Things like having herds of animals, for instance. Kind of using procedural generation of entities and content themselves to make the world feel a little more alive and dynamic. That's definitely like a post 1.0 launch kind of thing, though.
Okay, Nikov has asked this question a couple of different ways. I'm going to go with this version. Do you see Golang making an appearance somewhere in the stack of a game?
In our game, it's not on the roadmap at any point. We're super happy with C#. In terms of any game, I have trouble believing there aren't any games that are using it, at least on their server side. Do you know what those games are?
I mean, I know of there's some indie games and stuff, and that are Go, but I don't know any big studios that are using it.
It's not a bad language. We're definitely committed to the path that we are, and adding another language into the mix, the overhead of interop is probably higher than the benefit of using that one language instead of another. So we're not likely to make that part of our stack, but
and we have a lot of C# developers.
Yeah.
So
it's a great language. And there are games using it, just not this one.
Dark Society Network asks, what kinds of items can we expect to roll around the battlefield as physics items? Will weapons from dead players roll around? Will you have to implement a maximum of physics objects to prevent the game from going boom?
So I want them to. If you go all the way back to the Kickstarter, and one of the foundational principles was just the role of deterministic but unpredicted things, and having a bunch of random physics objects lying around is part of that. I cited the Myth series. That's MYTH, not MYST, in case I lithed a little bit. But yeah, where just every time someone died, their corpse and body parts and weapons would be dropped, and then you had all these explosives that would send those flying, and if they hit somebody, well, guess what? You just got hit in the face with the sword. It's not random. You don't want to say it's random, because it was like completely understandable and predictable. This thing happened, then this thing happened, but it makes the game really dynamic and emergent, and not the same thing every time, when these situations just sort of evolve. And so I think that having that is a good path to that. In terms of capping the performance on it, yeah. We don't want to give people the ability to basically DDoS the keep defenders by dropping lots of tiny little objects on the ground around them. And we do some things about aggregating stuff into just the Dayak poop sack.
Oh dear.
No, I mean, it looked like it was brown. It came to a point on the top. Okay, so people in Dayak would just walk up to their fallen enemy and squat down and then drop an item, and it was, that's the ultimate teabag, isn't that? So, yeah.
Gypsy Dancer asks, how concerned will CSE be about protecting player privacy? Will you take more of a Facebook approach or an Apple approach?
We're serious about it. The biggest thing that we can do to protect your privacy is never have the information to start with. I mean, that's we go out of our way. We handle all your financial information through PayPal or other payment processors, so we never know your credit card. We about the only piece of personal information we have is your email address, and and we never share that around. We never sell that. We never expose it. The only thing that's used for is to log into the game. So yeah, we're serious about it, and we're more serious about it than Apple probably.
And there's some more changes that will be coming up soon we'll be talking about.
Yeah, we gotta.
But I don't want to go into it. I'm just saying we'll talk about those in the future.
We expect to comply with all applicable laws.
Yes.
But the easiest way to never have a privacy violation is just for us to never know the information in the first place, and that's where we want to be. We know the information that we don't want to even be in that position.
Strike is definitely asking for a night stream. I haven't seen a night stream yet, says Strike. Okay, Sacrix asks, and we're going to give a 5-minute warning here, folks. 5-minute warning before we'll stop taking questions. This question has been asked a lot in the past. I think Sacrix wants to know if there's been any progress on this. Sacrix asks, how are you going to get around darkness and exploiting gamma settings? Will it be more direct tied to vision and draw distance, or more particle-thick fog?
That's an easy question. Thank you for asking that. So the plan is that we are going to make night, the night of nearby that you can see is going to get bumped up in brightness, where it's just, it's a dark blue shade of things. So it's not just like the blackness that it is now. Meanwhile, things that you cannot see for gameplay purposes, just because it's dark and your vision stat is not high enough, we'll just stop telling your client about them. Or we'll tell the client about a reduced version of, hey, there's a dude here, but draw him as just black particles, because you're not supposed to be able to see that. So we want to get away from night is just another shade of gamma. And make it take some of this to the gameplay level of, what's your vision stat? What's the light level? Are you supposed to see this person? And your client just won't even know about him if the answer to that is no. So yeah, that's strongly in the cards. Right now we're locking the scenario time of day, just so it's because honestly, the color palette of night is not where we want it to be. Once George is going to take another pass on that once he gets out of client input and UI refactor that he's doing. But yeah, darkness is a gameplay state, not a monitor state.
Gibberlot asks, has the tech team come to a decision on what the minimal rig requirements will be to run the game to a moderate standard?
No. That's really gonna just depend on adding the config and adding more config options than we have right now, and seeing how low we can get it in terms of just making things low end. A few weeks ago there was a post where we raised our absolute minimum in terms of graphics card generation, because that's just like, if NVIDIA is not going to support a card anymore, then we're not going to officially support it anymore either. So we've moved forward basically to 6 GeForce 600 series and higher, and you can expect that we're going to require a 64-bit version of Windows. That'll still be Windows 7 64-bit will still be fine on that, as long as Microsoft continues to support Windows 7 64-bit. But in terms of actual performance, we need to get our settings together and just see how low we can turn it and just straight up benchmark it, and that's going to be driven by that. But right now we're going features.
Alright, I'm looking for a nice question to end with, preferably something that both these guys could answer. But Dark Society Network wants to know, on the live game, what will happen when the physics server crashes mid-game? Will the game remain playable until physics get back?
That would be cool if we can get there. Our first goal is to just make the physics server not crash. Right now we don't have support for the physics server going down and coming back up, and that's a thing we can launch without, but we'll see. In terms of timeline, we could theoretically add that, but there's not an immediate timeline to do so, and the push is just going to be, well, don't let it crash. One thing that is coming together is proxy migration, where you're connected to a proxy server, and that proxy goes down either in a controlled fashion, because we're just like, let's, peak hours are over, let's consolidate players onto fewer proxies, or the bad case of a proxy just straight up crashes. In that case, we've got proxy migration coming together really nicely. Colin's been doing some good work towards that. So, yeah, that's the state of things. And game server actually could theoretically crash, which is sort of hilarious, because that one we could bring the game server back online. Like the gameplay server that runs your skills, we could bring that back online, and it would just restore everything from the last version that was saved to a database, and then you would just see a bunch of rubber banding as people snap back to their positions that they were in the world. Physics server is probably the one thing we can't recover from, but who knows?
This might be a nice one to end with. Strike asks, what is your longest line of code both of you wrote in CU, and what did it contain?
Longest single line.
I don't know.
I don't know. So Dave's the one who's going to win on longest line, because I organize my windows into columns, and just try and keep it to short lines, and Dave just has one window that's the entire width of his monitor, and he'll just keep typing and typing and typing across it.
I set hard limits for myself on lines. In C#, I don't have a hard limit set, but I have lines in my editor at 120. for what I aim for, and then 150 for like the longest it should ever get, and I just try to keep them with that. So that's basically like a ton of things reach that or get close to that. And then in the UI code, we actually have a hard limit of 120 characters on a line, like on a single line. So then we have to format it.
Or you could mean longest statement.
Or if there's longest statement,
which is probably, in my case, it's just going to be calling some function that takes 25 parameters or something, where it's like, well, I put a line break after each parameter, and it's a big stack of stuff with commas, but, sometimes .NET is an asshole and makes you call a function with 25 parameters. Actually, DirectX is probably the meanest one in terms of, and now you must pass 50 things to this function.
All right. Well, do you guys want to open presents?
Sure.
I believe these are from Ludovic, but we'll check inside to make sure.
Oh, you open that one?
Okay.
This one is Amazon Prime tape, so
JB's just gonna gnaw it. Oh my God!
Is this notes?
Is this?
I'm looking for a letter though.
Ludovic,
You must choose, but choose wisely from Ludovic.
Let's see what.
Choose wisely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ludovic. What is it?
It's it.
All right, we have to choose.
Okay. It appears to be a collection of amazing mugs.
Yep.
Ooh.
So, what do we have here?
Batman.
No. So that's Michelle's.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's Michelle's mug. Let's just.
I'm going to move the camera down so we can see the Batman mug.
Oh. There's a Deadpool mug.
That one's probably going to be Tim,
Deadpool
unless
mug.
unless there's a Venom one. That'll be Tim's.
I don't know. Maybe there is.
Oh, Tim.
Oh, yeah,
there
that's
it is.
Tim's.
Speaking of Venom. Wow.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight while drinking coffee?
There's one more. Right here.
Yeah, this one's going to need some scissors.
And Jabba. Is that it?
Oh, wow.
Oh, the tail! The tail is amazing.
The tail is the handle. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's practically like. Oh, I have to see this. I may choose this one. This is amazing.
What do you mean you'll choose that one? I think they're
Because you
for
have
the
to
office.
choose wisely. That's what Ludovic said.
No. You
Stole the Venom one.
you're gonna steal. You're gonna try and steal the Venom one when Tim comes to work in a Venom hoodie every day. And Das Punisher.
Punisher. Yeah.
Are you ready to be punished?
Hell yeah.
Wow.
I don't know why the Punisher is suddenly German.
Who was nice enough to give these to us?
Ludovic,
Holy
thank you.
crap.
Thank you, Ludovic.
I think
If you're
wanna
down
open the
there,
other box
camera.
too?
Thank you.
Let's
open the other box.
It might be more mugs.
We need to
Do
make
you have the
sure on
scissors?
next week's stream to make sure these are being used.
Do we have to make sure they're being used? I mean, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay, Olvik says Tim gets dibs on Venom.
No!
John's getting them ready for a close-up.
Punisher is my superhero. Actually, I don't have my Punisher shirt anymore. I used to wear one all the time.
I still have that one I keep using that I got printed with Hernandez on it.
one final mug. What will it be? What will
Camera's
it be?
staring at Andrew's crotch right now.
No, it's staring at the mugs.
Okay.
No, well, technically, it's caught
Thanks, artist.
You're welcome. Slightly to the left.
And the last one, was that
Oh,
Chewie?
Chewie.
It's Chewie.
Nice.
We gotta send a Star Wars one to Scott.
So it's Marvel, DC, and Star Wars.
Holy.
Send it to him. No, he'll have to come visit. Work
It's-
here and then you.
Scott has to come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard it, Scott. You want your mug.
Oh.
You want your mug, you're going to
Hang
have to
out
come
for a
down
day.
here.
Dude, those are awesome.
Awesome.
They're
Thank
awesome.
you.
These are amazing.
Thank you, Ludovic.
Thank you. Yes, we are going to drink out of these, I promise.
All right. Well, thank you
Oh,
all
that's a
very
good
much for
Deadpool.
joining us for the end of week wrap up and Q&A.
This is still just like insane, though.
We'll have to
Like-
do themed drinks out of it.
my
You guys, you ready to turn it off or what?
Yeah.
We're good. See you later. Right? Is that how it goes? Or is it see you soon?
We'll
See
you
you
later.
something?
Keep
See
an eye
you
out
network
for
test.
keep an eye out for our email update, which will have the full top 10-ish.
See you next time.
And keep your eye out for emails about testing over the weekend.
Yes, there will be a test. It's just a question of which server in for who. So it will be number 1 on the top 10-ish.
All right, bye-bye. See you.